today we'll discuss two topics. One is career selection, and then we'll touch upon the tendering related topic, tendering related aspects. So career selection, we saw career selection very briefly, rather I think sufficient detail maybe in the planning profile. So planning profile will comprise of one of the settings in the planning profile is the career selection. But career selection has certain importance. So therefore, we'll just talk about career selection. So typically, the career selection is mostly used in the land transportation. So in the freight order. So and because assigning of careers, typically you don't assign aircrafts and vessels and all that. You don't do career, you don't do assignments to that extent. You typically have them as per the schedule. So largely careers are assigned in the freight order, and you have different ways of assigning the career. So it could be manual assignment, or it could be using optimization algorithm, and it could also, and then it has an extension to once the careers are selected, or rather listed, then those careers which are listed, they can be subject to some tendering process or auctioning or something like that. So that is so those are all sort of connected. And then you have different types of tendering, peer-to-peer and broadcast tendering and all that. So that we will discuss when we discuss a little later on the tendering. And then so basically the idea is of what? I mean, basically the idea is to have a efficient or a cost-efficient carrier to be assigned to the freight order. So that's the typical objective. And then you have the what you call the optimizer. You have the optimizer which will look at various options in terms of coming up with that particular list per se. We will see what are the different ways and means of selecting those, arriving at that particular list. How does a particular program does that activity? Then so freight orders from the selection profile. The input is nothing but the freight orders from the selection profile. That is for all those freight units or freight orders for which the carrier has to be assigned. So that's your input parameter for the freight orders, and carrier selection is carried out. And one other point is that you could also have a background job, like always you have an option of background job also to assign carriers typically, right? And let me take you to this particular, So typically, when you talk about career assignment, career selection or so these are various various sources from where you can have, you can trigger the career assignment. So there could be through work list, or Fiori app, or in the cockpit, or in the freight order, or using the VSR TSPS as a optimizer program, which is mentioned in the career settings in the planning profile. So in the planning profile, we will see that particular thing. In the planning profile, you have career settings, and in the career settings, the program which will execute, the optimizer program which executes to select the appropriate freight carriers for the freight orders of freight units is VSR TSPS. So that this is one source from which operates selection of the carrier. So if you have a freight order, as you know, you can assign a carrier, and in the cockpit also you can assign the carrier to the freight order which got created, which we have seen the other day. And you have an app, Fiori app and work list and all that. So these are typically the sources from where you can operate the carrier. So so basically, for creation of the freight order, you have uh, you can create through various options, which is what the creation of freight order. So and then what happens is that carrier selection process. How does the carrier get selected? What are all the things which are considered for a carrier selection process, whether it is automatic assignment, whether it is manual assignment, or just to have have available carriers. Now, automatic assignment means you are assigning automatically to the freight order. Manual assignment means you are manually assigning the carrier to the freight order. Available carrier means that you are just having a list of carriers, but you are not assigning it to the freight order. You are tendering it out. That means you will take the list of the carriers and then you will auction, or you will tender it to the list of carriers, and then you will choose the best among them or something like that. So this would be a typical end result. In between, in the process of execute carrier selection, so you have various things which will happen. So basically, these things are nothing but the program, the strategy, right? So there are various methods which the program, which has the strategy, which has different methods which it will follow, right? Like determining the carriers, checking the incompatibility, or determining in some internal cost, because it needs to check which carrier is expensive. Let's say, for example, for a particular lane, different carriers might quote different cost. So then the program has to check whichever is the optimum cost or something like that, and then it will also have to check like transportation allocations. Uh, there may be some capacities are allocated to that, some carriers, if they are eligible for that, or business shares, maybe some freight orders, number of freight orders, or some percentage of business in that particular lane has to be checked. And then if there are some continuous moves, if that is what is applicable, and those kind of stuff are checked. So how this check happens is typically by a particular program. Like for example, if you see here, TSPS DEF, this is the so TSPS DEF, this is the program which does the career selection strategy. So that's the optimizer program. So, and it has different methods within the strategy. You have different methods. So this is, so the strategy TSPS DEF is assigned to the career selection settings, right? So which is within that planning profile. So it uses various methods, a sequence. In a sequence it operates like it does some pre-processing. It gets the carriers, checks incompatibility, looks into continuous move, and all that stuff. So it methodically checks each and every area. So basically, it will be taking all of these as inputs. Carrier profiles, lanes, carrier profiles. Also, we have seen in the master data, right? So it will look into that, the lanes for which it has to work. Select the carrier, zones, allocations, and all that stuff. And then all these things, what are listed here, these are the ones which are mentioned in the carrier selection. So we will see in the theory app or profile, right? And so typically, when you look at this is the same thing. This is a diagram which this process is what is depicted as these methods, right? The same thing, whatever is you see here, these are all depicted in the form of methods to finally